Well, I just think we have to do a really thorough job of vetting Tulsi Gabbard and asking some very difficult questions. Obviously, we have all watched her toe the line of some brutal, despotic regimes, defending Moscow's invasion of Ukraine, engaging in secret diplomacy with Bashar al-Assad in the middle of his murderous rampage inside Syria. I just think we have to ask some real questions about Tulsi Gabbard's positions.
Hi again, everybody. 5 o'clock in New York. At a time when global tensions are high and the war in Ukraine is intensifying, Donald Trump's decision to tap Tulsi Gabbard as his incoming director of national intelligence is raising alarms, as you heard there. New reporting uncovers how she has become a favorite among the state media of one of America's adversaries, Russia. That's according to the New York Times, which reports this, quote, "In Russia, the reaction to her potential appointment has been gleeful, even if Putin's government remains wary of American policies, even under a second Trump administration." Quote, "The CIA and the FBI are trembling," a Russian newspaper wrote on Friday in a glowing profile of Ms. Gabbard, noting positively that Ukrainians consider her, quote, "an agent of the Russian state." A state television channel called her a Russian comrade in Mr. Trump's emerging cabinet. The Times goes on to report, quote, "Among members from both parties, her tacit support of Russia's war aims in Ukraine and her repetition of Kremlin disinformation have raised doubts about whether she should be given oversight of the intelligence agencies, including the responsibility of preparing the highly classified daily intelligence briefings for the returning president, which we have just learned Trump is now receiving as the president-elect after having chosen not to receive them while he was a candidate. Trump receiving intelligence briefings is remarkable for the fact that just last year he was criminally charged for mishandling national defense information and classified information. His already established disregard for the safety of our nation's secrets makes his cabinet choices, especially those with access to top intelligence, all the more serious. Here's Congresswoman Abigail Spanberger.
So I'm a former CIA officer. I worked undercover for my time with the agency as a case officer. The reason that this nomination, I think, is so dangerous is because any damage that she would do, any information she would provide the president, right? She tweets Russian propaganda. Why not include it in the presidential daily brief? She traffics in conspiracy theories. Why not kind of push that into the greater ecosystem of intelligence? And none of that would ever be seen by the public. There's no opportunity to push back. There's no opportunity to understand. It's not about party or the president-elect. It's about our national security.
That is where we start the hour with some of our favorite experts and friends. Former CIA director and MSNBC senior national security analyst John Brennan's here. Also joining us, former assistant director for counterintelligence at the FBI, MSNBC national security analyst Frank Figliuzzi is back. And the president of Media Matters, Angelo Carusone, is here. Director Brennan, let me just bring into the conversation before we start some new reporting in the Washington Post about the transition, which is what's happening right now. The Washington Post today reports this, quote, "Trump has yet to collaborate with the General Services Administration, which is tasked with the complex work of handing over control of hundreds of agencies, because he has not turned in required pledges to follow ethics rules. His transition teams have yet to set foot inside a single federal office. In calls with foreign heads of state, Trump has cut out the State Department, its secure lines, and its official interpreters." So Trump is right now, what, a black box to the intelligence agencies he's about to oversee?
Well, I think Donald Trump is a well-known commodity in terms of what he did during his first term and also how he recklessly handled classified information, which I think is one of the reasons why there's such concern within the intelligence communities. But, I mean, let's face it, Donald Trump is not going to follow any rules but his own. That's why there have been no individuals that have been submitted for background checks to the FBI. These ethics pledges have not been signed. As you point out, GSA has not been able to engage with them in order to ensure this transition is smooth and seamless. But then also with his appointees, I think he's just showing that he is going to do whatever he wants. And he's basically really daring Republicans, especially in the Senate, to defy him. So given that the Director of National Intelligence is by law the president's principal intelligence advisor, the individual who oversees the production of the President's Daily Brief, which contains the secrets and sensitive classified information of the U.S. intelligence community, this is a tremendous responsibility that is now being entrusted, at least in the nomination of Tulsi Gabbard. And it's clear, based on what Senator Murphy said at New York Times and Congresswoman Spanberger, she has done things and said things over the years that really cause great concern about where her sympathies and sentiments lie. But also, she has no experience or background in the intelligence profession. I mean, yes, she served in the U.S. military for 20 years. She should be thanked for that. But she has none of the experience or the credentials that are necessary to lead 18 intelligence agencies departments when we're facing so many challenges around the globe. And so, therefore, again, Donald Trump is just going to, I think, ramrod these selections through. And it's really going to be up to the Republicans in the Senate to be able to stop him.
Director Brennan, can you just say a little bit about what happens on day one for the workforce of, say, the CIA?
Well, they on noon on January 20th, when Donald Trump is inaugurated, they then will going to be following the direction of whoever is in charge of the agency. And so John Ratcliffe has been nominated, but he's not, I don't know if he's going to be confirmed soon after that. But Donald Trump has the ability to appoint a acting director. The deputy director of the CIA is not a Senate-confirmed position. So that acting director can actually carry out all those duties and responsibilities. And so that person can send, I think, some shocking directions to the CIA officers who, again, put their lives on the line around the globe 24/7. And so I think that there's, great worry and concern about what does this mean, given that Donald Trump has said he's basically going to blow up the administrative state and do some slashing and burning. And these are the institutions that we rely on so heavily for our national security. And what I don't want my former colleagues to do is to leave the agency, because we need them to stay strong and to carry out their responsibilities with the solemnity that they have over the course of, I think, the CIA's history.
Frank, let me read a little bit more of NBC's reporting on how this would work. Gabbard would pose a potentially unprecedented dilemma for U.S. intelligence agencies, a top official who may not share an underlying premise about which countries are America's major enemies. The DNI's job is to define the world as it is, as opposed to advocating for a world as you want it to be. That's a former intelligence official. Former U.S. intelligence officials and lawmakers also worry that Gabbard and the new Trump administration might decide to scale back intelligence sharing with Ukraine, possibly in an attempt to force Kyiv to agree to a peace deal. Your thoughts?
Yeah, indeed. The job of a DNI is to coordinate the intelligence community, everybody rowing in the direction of finding the facts that best support U.S. interests. And if the person in charge of that is biased and wants everybody rowing over here away from fact and truth and U.S. interests, she has the ability to do that. She sets the shopping list, so to speak, for collection across the U.S. intelligence community. And as John has just said, she'll also decide what goes in that daily brief to the president. And if the president doesn't want to hear anything about Russia, then guess what? She's going to say, I don't want that in the briefing. He's not going to hear that. That's bad news for him. That's not what U.S. intelligence collection is supposed to be. And I know a lot of people are talking about the threat and risk she poses because of her positions, her travels, and all of that. But it's even worse than that. We can't stand here and say with any certainty that she is a Russian asset or she poses a threat or risk, because we're not being allowed to view or engage in the standard FBI background investigation that is supposed to happen with this level of nominees. So that means the Senate is flying blind and may even lose their advice and consent powers, which are in the Constitution, if Trump goes the route of recess appointments. That means the Senate Judiciary Committee is not getting what they're supposed to have. And it means that the American public doesn't know who's taking one of the most important positions in the intelligence community. no background investigation, no GSA process. What does that mean? Is Trump afraid that GSA office space would be bugged? Is that where we are right now? Or he doesn't simply want to have to sign that ethics agreement? That's where we are. We don't even know who these people are because we're deprived of the background investigations. And who gives these people a clearance, by the way? DNI's got every clearance known to man, right? Who says, yeah, you get the clearance despite the lack of any background investigation?